Listen closely to the question I am about to ask, because the answer could save someone's life. Mr. Toastmaster, members, and guests, the question: who likes to hug? Just as I thought. Every time I ask that question, half of the people in the room will raise their hand, and almost 100% of them are women. It's something about women that understand the power of a hug. A hug makes you feel safe and secure. Men, we are just beginning to get more comfortable with the whole concept of hugging. So one of the things I want to share with you is kind of my experience with hugging, and for those that don't hug, whether male or female, to share with you why there is truly a power in a hug. One of the reasons why I think I was a little apprehensive about hugging for so long in my life was the experiences that I had when we would go and visit my mother's sisters, my aunties. Whenever I would go to visit an auntie, they would give what we would call auntie hugs. And these were just like the grip of death. These hugs were so tight you could barely breathe. I'd walk in the room and my Aunt Mary would see me and she would say, "Look at that big head little boy. You better come over here and give me a hug." As I said, I hated those hugs. But you know, as I look back as an adult, I really remember that it did make me feel pretty good. It made me feel wanted, it made me feel safe, and it definitely made me feel secure. I guess there really is power in a hug. As I got older and went off to college, one of the things that I began to notice is that more men were greeting one another with a hug, or something that looked like a hug. And what men would call it is a bro hug. And for those that don't know what a bro hug is, let me give you a little demonstration. So you're out and you see your friend coming. You say, "Hey, Mike." He says, "Hey, Mark." You walk up to one another and you give each other this aggressive handshake. Then you pull the other person close to you like you're doing a chest bump. Then you take that left arm and you wrap it around. And this is the important part, so pay close attention. You give each other a quick 2 pats on the back. Pop, pop! Then you gotta let go. Because if you hold it longer than 2 seconds, it's no longer a bro hug. Most men will tell you that they get a lot of energy when they greet one another in that way. I guess there really is power in a hug. Probably the most powerful hug that I became aware of was given by a guy by the name of Terrence Talley. I met Terrence last summer. Terrence is an inspirational speaker. He would go to high schools and he would help kids to deal with some of the things that teenagers have to deal with. At the end of his presentations, Terrence would invite all the kids to come down and receive what he called a dad hug. So this one particular day, he made his presentation as he always did, and then he invited them to come down to get a dad hug. The kids came down and they whipped around the room. You'd be amazed at the number of kids that wanted a hug. So one by one as they came, Terrence would give them a hug. This time he noticed from the corner of his right eye, there was a young man dressed all in black fingernails, just pacing nervously back and forth, back and forth. Terrence thought, this is a little odd, but then he refocused and continued to give the kids as they came through a hug. As the last kid came through, that young man whipped in front of Terrence, looked him in the eye and said, "You made me feel something." And then out of nowhere, he gave Terrence the biggest bear hug he had had all day. Terrence just looked at him and smiled and said, "You're the reason why I'm here." Apparently that was too much for that young man to handle. because he let go, and then he ran out of the auditorium. He made it to his first class. And in this particular class, the students would never, ever talk to him. But the kids were in there talking about the presentation. And one of the young ladies said, "Did Terrence give you a hug today?" The young man looked down at his shoes. Then he looked up and said, "That was the first time I'd ever received a hug." That hit those kids because one by one, they walked up and they gave that young man a hug. That was too much for him to handle. Once again, he let go and he ran out the room. This time he ended up in the principal's office. He was crying. The principal asked, "Why are you crying?" So he began to share getting the hug from Terrence, then from his classmates, and how it had really touched his heart. He stopped and he kind of had a little smile on the side of his face. He pulled down his book bag and he reached in and he pulled out a gun. He walked slowly over to the principal's desk, sat the gun down, and said, "Today, I had planned to kill myself." He turned around, and this time, he walked slowly out the room. If you were like me at one time, and you weren't that crazy about giving hugs, I hope that story showed you that there is truly power in a hug that could save a life. Mr. Toastmaster.